So welcome to today's lecture. In our previous lecture, we did the planning, organizing, leading, and control, the POLC model. And we got to controlling. We explained planning, we explained organizing, we explained leadership, and then we now going to talk about controlling. So that's what was done. And the quiz we just did has just energized us to ensure that we are very, very apt when it comes to some of these things. And we are very, very detailed and also very sensitive some of these questions, because these questions that are multiple choice questions will test your depth in the course to know whether you have read well or you haven't. So today we're going to talk about controlling. Basically, anytime we say control, the word control, literally, it means that we are kind of doing some sort of measurement between targets and actual. So we have set targets and we want to achieve the targets. And we have what actual, and we are comparing what we have done to the targets. And then if there are any differences, what we will do is that we put in some measures to make sure, we achieve the target. If we exceed the target, we find out what we did right, and then we repeat that. So controlling is very, very essential when it comes to management, because it is that part of management that spans through the beginning of planning till it gets to. It is not actually a one-time activity that you do, but it's a continuous activity. You start from planning. At the stage of planning, you are controlling. You are making sure that your vision and mission stays within a certain context, okay, that you do not go out, so that you don't have what we call strategic misalignment. You don't set a vision that you want to be the #1 producer of maybe mineral water, and then your mission will be dealing with neat fufu and neat banku, which is not part of that. So vision, mission. So at that point, you're also doing controlling. So controlling spans through, and it helps us always to be on our toes, and also helps the organization to focus on the critical things that it has to do. So we said that the saying here that controlling is simply the actions that managers take after making what? Decision. After they have taken the decision, what they do. So managers monitor. So one key instrument of controlling is to monitor. And they also do observation. They walk through processes, they collect information, they make sure that what people are expected to do, they do that. And in doing that, they take decisions, and if there are corrective measures, they put it there. Today, because of IT, we are moving from the normal manual controlling strategies into electronic controlling strategies. What we do is that they will not wait for something to happen before it is corrected, but they put some sort of alert and other things there to prevent the error from happening. Okay, so that's what they do. So for instance, if managers are being monitored, they are going through the factory house, there's something called Gemba walk. If you do what we call lean operation, there's something called Gemba walk. They walk through the processes and they take a list, a checklist, and then they see what they collect real-time information. And that if there's something decision to be taken, that person who is working is empowered to take that decisions. And then that person makes that corrective, put in that corrective actions. So there are two types of management control. So we have the regulative and normative. Take note of that. This will appear somewhere. So regulative control regulates the policies and procedures of the company, while normative control is the culture behavior in teams. All right. So the culture behavior in team, normative cultures, or something that is normative belief, is something you are expecting the other to do. a behavior that you expect the other person to put up. There's the personal norms or personal values that are exclusive to you. And that one, you use that to measure your own standard. And because you have this personal beliefs or the personal norms, it helps you and it shapes your own behavior. Sometimes these personal norms emanate from the way we were trained at homes, or the way we have related to our peers, or even religion, or even education. It shapes us, gives us some personal values, some principles. You hear people saying that I'm a principled person and all that. These are personal norms. But the normative ones are the ones you expect others to do. So we are saying that the normative ones is rather hinged on the core values of the organization. You know, when you set your mission and vision, there's something called core values that describes the corporate credos, what the organization holds. In fact, those values, those core values emanate from what? The vision. It comes from the vision. They say we organization, we do this, and we start with the values. We cherish employees, customers are, why we exit. These are values, and we expect that these values should be exhibited by what? The staff. And so most times in most organizations, they come to work and you are supposed to recite the core values or even the vision. They meet and they all recite it so that it becomes part of their lifestyle. So the regulative one are hinged on are related to the policies, and these policies, remember, comes from the strategies. When we do the strategic plan, we have the vision, the mission. The mission is turned into goals, long-term goals. The goals are turned into objectives. In the objectives, for instance, we are to do what? Build a plant, right, in the next 5 years to produce water. That is the objective. It's smart, it's target. We have given a certain, timeline, 5 years. We are building a plant. So the objectives, this objective is broken into strategies. So these strategies will be, one is to award contract to somebody. All right. In the awarding of the contract, there are policies, procurement issues are there, and there are rules of procurement that the procurement manager should comply with. So you see how this thing is broken down. So these policies, you should understand that it comes from the vision. That's where it comes from. But at the objective levels, when we get the strategies, we break them into what? Policies. For instance, if we say that we want to make sure that customer lead times are met, there will be a policy of punctuality. And this punctuality means that you don't become late. And when you come to you don't come to work late. And when you do that, there are sanctions. That policy emanated from the fact that we wanted to meet customer lead time. All right. And this lead time is also subsumed into a certain objective, which probably to increase customer delight by maybe 10%. So in doing that, one of the strategies is to do what? To be punctual, to be able to work within that time. Okay, so I just want you to understand. So regulative and normative. I've explained this way, so you see how it relates to our work. So examples of regulative control are financial and quality controls. For instance, while team and culture control are example of what? Normative control. And we are saying that in order to effectively control, managers must define baselines, which I talked about. They must define targets, baselines and targets. And managers need to create plans and standards of measurement to gauge performance. And once standards and baselines are established, then it is easy to do the measurement, okay? And then you get regular feedbacks from them. So as a manager, one of the things you have to do when it comes to control is that you need to set the baseline. Where are we and where do we want to be? All right. And then you have to put in mechanisms to ensure that, I mean, if any error is seen, you can correct it. You don't just document it. You correct it and make sure that the deviation from the actual, it is not too much. The deviation, if it is positive, then the organization must repeat what they did. If it is negative, then they have to go and then correct those mistakes. So that is it, sir. And we are also saying that the human elements must be approached in the planning stage. And it's essential that people be coached and rewarded rather than simply punished and penalized. In other words, if people meet targets, we need to celebrate them, right? If they meet targets, we need to celebrate them. But what we do in our culture is that we talk about the wrongs more than rather helping people, I mean, praising them. If someone does well, it's a matter of a challenge for the manager to say you've done well or to acknowledge the person. But it is easy to lambast them, okay? But we should also know that control is very important. But if it is too strict, then it becomes an issue. So we say strict control management will not guarantee the best possible outcome for the project. And it may not even be the most effective method to use. So while it's important to have standards and measures, the most effective business plan include an element of flexibility and empowerment. Empowerment will come there, that talks more about the delegation, right? So teams should be empowered. They should be, when you say empowerment, you should be given some level of decision that person can take. Example, you are in the maintenance department, you are the maintenance manager, and then you know this wheel nuts. I mean, the cost is not too much. You could tell the team leader that anytime this thing gets damaged, just pick it from the, from the market and bring an invoice. But make sure it doesn't exceed a certain cap, so that they will not have to write a memo to you, and then whilst production is ongoing, something has broken down. When you are not around, they cannot take a decision. You cannot do that. All right, that is going to hurt the organization, and that's very, very important. So empowered teams would be able to self-organize themselves, self-manage, and self-control themselves. When they are empowered, when you give them a little bit of power, and this power means financial power, there's a cap, that decision that the person can take in terms of what also policies, the extent to which when the rules do not make sense, how do we take other actions to avert that problem. Let me give you a typical example. We went to South Africa. I went with a team to South Africa. We were doing something on simulation, right? A team, I was with the engineers. Then returned from, from Dubai, from India to Dubai, and then Ghana. Then I had to go to South Africa. No, we went to also Egypt and came back. So South Africa was the last trip. So the team left and I had to join them. Now, this is what happened. When we went to SA, we went to Victoria. And then there was another team that came for conference or something from GPHA, where they went to Joburg. Now, when they were done, they were going to the airport, they were robbed. Now, there are strict policies in GPHA, right? When they give you a per diem and all that. But this is a situation where these guys have been robbed. So in the first place, they've taken everything from them. They've taken their passports as well, all right? So I was a leader, not in their team, but I was in a different team. And what I was supposed to do was to call my boss. So when I called my boss, what my boss said was that, David, you are there. I don't know the situation there. So this is what you have to do. Handle the situation and give me a feedback. And he told me, handle the situation means that find a way to resource these people. At least each and everyone should get a pocket money of $1,000 before. They were about how many? They were about 7 people before they get to Ghana because they have gone through serious trauma. So handle the situation meant that they didn't have passport, they need traveling, emergency traveling certificates. So my boss called the South Africa, the High Commissioner, and I had to move them. In fact, we had to move them from the airport to our hotel, move some of the guys to sleep with their the pair so that they could have a place to sleep because, there was no money and that evening there was nothing we could do. And in addition, I had to tell the other team members that if anyone has surplus money, and one of the things I do when I travel, I pick all my money with me because I know anything can happen. So I was able to raise $6,000 and I got some 2,000 from other people. $1,000 was used. They had to stay for 2 days. So they were used for their feeding and then their movement and everything. And I got everything. We got the emergency traveling certificates. And then I got them to the airport and then they left. Now in GPHA, typically, if this thing happens to you, the procedure is that you have to travel and then with your money. Where did you pass? Which route did you use for you to have gotten yourself into this complication? In fact, if the manager has not, the CEO has not stepped in, that would have been an issue. That was the first time that somebody from outside had to fund something like that. And when I came to Ghana, they had to refund the money to me. It is not part of the standard operating procedures, but I was given that power, that delegation of power, and given the laxity that I should do this. But I was given a cap, at least $1,000 for each person as pocket money. So in our businesses, this is what we should be doing. We have to empower people so that they can self-organize. Because and that is the problem we have in this part of Africa. We don't deliberately create leaders. And it starts from you giving that person power and giving a tolerable or allowable mistake that you can accommodate. Right? Another example, my personal driver, let me put that one even aside. So back again in GPHA, we were supposed to do some work, a project work. And during the configuration, an error happened. And that error was caused by somebody had delegated power to. So when that error happened, what it meant was that, in fact, there was going to be a stampede for about 1 hour. We have to restart all the servers and all that. So the DG called and said, Boison, I said, I take full responsibility of that. He said, why? Something happened. He said, who did that? I said, that doesn't matter. I take full responsibility. In an hour's time, the system will come up and I'll write official apology. This is a systemic issue. But actually what happened was that the guy was trying something on the live server, which he shouldn't have. But there was space to accommodate that. And then now issue a warning that he should never do this thing on a live server. All right? So in other words, that guy knew that, okay, there's a warning. But my boss shielded me. My boss took that responsibility that because I was working under him, the problem was his. In other jurisdictions, they will point to the person and then you'll be asked to issue a query. That makes you, the boss, a useless boss. Okay, so this is very important. So that does with controlling. Let me allow you guys, if you have any question to ask on controlling, you can ask. Go ahead.
Doc, can I say something?
Please go ahead, please.
Now, the examples you gave are perfect examples. But we also have situations where probably you delegated power to the staff to do something. and you delegated it not once, not twice, not 3 times. But then there was a tendency, I mean, there was something like a deliberate way of the why I say deliberate is that you delegate a person, he do mistake, you warn him, he come back the second time, you warn him, the third time, what do you think I should do? I need to query the person.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly.
So in controlling, even though it's important to, as managers, to delegate so that we could allow them to deliver and use their own discretion and handle certain things. And when there's a mistake, you can take it up. Fine, it's good. I remember taking up something in such a nature where somebody mistakenly committed something. It was not deliberate, but it happened. But I took full responsibility to answer the query, and I warned the guy never to allow that thing to happen. Yeah, so it's good, but some of them, they do it deliberately. I'd say deliberately because if you come first, you apologize second, and then third. The third one, I don't think I should allow it. So
no, we don't go through that level. In fact, the first warning is enough. And that, Dave, one other thing as managers we should be able to also do is that when you have warned the person, right, counsel the person. You get it? So the guy did something wrong. Probably it was lack of expertise. He didn't understand what he was doing, right? Or better still, he had a different perception about voting. So if we are correcting the person, then we should show the person the right thing to do. And then let the person be aware the consequences of his action. For instance, I told the person that I've gone to finance and I've verified that how much was it going to cost for that stampede in that area. And I told him it was $100,000. That's what your actions have cost. All right, $100,000. You imagine the number of years your salary can accumulate to that amount. And indeed, the guy saw it as a huge, I said, that's actually what happened. And that's to tell you that you don't have to go there again. All right. And I'll have to, shield you and then let the organization know the cost we have saved by implementing that system, and that the $100,000 is nothing to write home about compared to what we have done. You get it? And that was what saved us, but it shouldn't have happened in the first place. Okay, so I agree with you. We shouldn't go, but anytime you want to query someone, after doing the query, counsel the person and let the person know what he did wrong. He or she did wrong. And that is very, very important. What we don't do, we query the person becomes very disturbed, doesn't know who to talk to, cannot even talk to the boss. And then now, all whatever talent the person has cannot exhibit it again. Hey, I will not touch this so that there will be a problem. But that's not the essence. The correction is to help build more confidence and to be able to work. It's not to just, calm the person at calm. And in our organization, most times that's what we do. We don't do it consciously. And it's something we do it unconscious. But if you are really building leaders, okay, we should be able to do that. Because if I know that what I've done is wrong, and you let me know the impact of my wrong, and that the reason why I shouldn't do that again, that is going to scare me. Okay, and what I'm punishing my kids, I'll let them know that I love you so much, but this is why I'm punishing you. All right, and this is the consequences for what you are doing to the family and all that.
Yeah. To add to that, like I was saying, there was this officer of mine who was tasked to go and clear a part from the airport, cargo session, airport. And this part, he was bringing worth around 7,000 euros. So what he did was that you clear the part, instead of him to bring the part to the office, hand over the part to stores, let the records take place. He took the part and was chasing things at 37 Military Hospital, going places, and then came to the office around 7 p.m. outside the normal time with a part. So what I did was I called him to my office, then I asked him that you went to clear it. He said yes. And what happened? Then when he called it, there was an emergency, he has to do this, he has to do it. So the question was, did you call me to tell me that you had an emergency?
Exactly.
If you had called me, I would have arranged somebody to come for the part. This part you are roaming, if somebody should break into the car and pick the part, which is over 7,000 euros, a spare part, what will happen? Then he was standing watching me. I said, you see, so I told him that it was wrong for him to do that, made him understand that what he did was wrong. It was not about you going somewhere that I will not allow you to go, but it was using the processes and procedure to do whatever you also want to do outside your normal job. Because what you are going to do is not part of your normal job. So I made him understand. So what he said is perfect. We need to always counsel them and then talk to them and let them know the mistake they have made. At times, it's not about the punishment, but if you let a person see that he looks, excuse me to use the word stupid, he may not repeat it again the next time.
Exactly.
So that is.
So sometimes even we, the managers, take a position that the person, now that you have done this, you are not part of my core team anymore. You understand? Then they relegate the person to a different level and all that. And like then some sort of litigation starts. But I tell people, even when you have friends, you don't know who is against you. So just imagine you have enemies. Even your friends, you don't know who is against you. So just imagine you declare that these guys are my enemies, then you are done. Anything can happen. I don't know who else has anything to share on this. I'm doing this because of the practical aspects that we can apply to what we are doing. Other than that, we'll proceed with decisiveness and decision making. Who else? Anyone has anything to say? Are we on course? Or should I mention names?
Yes, we are on course.
Yes, we are on course.
Okay. Okay, I know how to get you guys. I'll bring another objective questions. I'll get you to talk. So let's talk about decisiveness and decision making. All right, so we are saying that decisiveness is a key skill that managers need to develop, right? Being decisive. Now, anyone who is decisive is assertive. All right. In other words, if he takes a decision, he weighs the pros and cons, and then he goes ahead to implement. He's not somebody who will say, should I do it or shouldn't I do it? Okay, so we are saying that managers rely on information to make decisions. And this information must be accurate. We need to check the source of the information. Okay. And managers at every level need to acquire, they need to organize and maintain information in order to make appropriate decisions that will ensure that the company runs smoothly. And with the overflow of information, it's important to have the correct information. All right. It is very, very important. Most companies have run down just because of some decision that some people took. All right. And if you don't seek out, if you don't sort and deliver relevant information, what is going to happen is that you will end up making the wrong decisions, and that is going to affect the company. So examples of information that may be closely collected, monitored, and managed are financial information such as cash flow, growth rates, sales quotas, our liabilities. We want to know our market share. Where did you pick that record? You went online and then picked some survey without any reliable source, and then you use that one to do some analysis and then present it to your boss that the company was doing well. All right, only to find out that that source is not credible. Okay. So we say managers should depend on the information that are ASA, and that is what we mean by ASA is that information that is accurate, that is comprehensive, that is current, that is economical, that is relevant. Those of us who have done research, we know that when you are citing in a paper, the recommended, if you're doing social sciences, the recommended year band is not more than 5 years, because more than 5 years, a number of things will happen. Even in IT now, they don't cite more than 3 years because, I mean, within the past 5 years, a number of things have happened. The advent of the COVID that struck us alone has changed the dynamics. It has changed how we live our lives and do things. So, I mean, if you're going to cite 5 years when COVID has happened and changed our things, and you are citing somebody whose findings said X, Y, Z, that findings is not valid because the dynamics have changed. So that is a problem for us. So information about customers and their feedback, both positive and negative, needs to be addressed. And the same applies to information about organization employees, their feedback, and on their product. Let me say this, some of you who have just started your company, sometimes you get feedback from employees, and then they say employees are complaining, the salaries are not good, or we are not getting the kind of approvals to work. Maybe they are not asking for too much money, but these PPEs, they are not having it to work. In fact, the things that they need to work, the tools are not there. Now, when you have this signal, some of us who have just started growing our business, it's like Ghanaian workers are just like that. Don't mind them. Don't mind them. They should manage. Even in this company, this is what they do. Even them, they are surviving. They are not complaining. What is very dangerous in business is to have a dissatisfied employee. It is rather better, listen to this, to have a satisfied employee and a dissatisfied customer than rather to have a dissatisfied employee and a satisfied customer. That is dangerous. All right? Because the employees, they create the product and services, but they create it for the customer. So they are the source. For customers, those that have a bad encounter with you, they might go and spread the news. You might look for other customers and get them. It is not too easy to replace your core employees because of the rate of staff turnover. And people do not realize that when new people come in, it takes time for them to adapt because they'll be making a lot of mistakes. And those ones, you don't quantify them. So you think that everything is okay. But if you were somebody who was very observant, you realize that retaining employees for a long time gives you some sort of consistency in what you're doing. No matter how well trained somebody is and moves from one company to the other, when it comes, it needs orientation. It's about 3 to 4 months to plug in, to adapt, to understand the system, even the culture, to even, I mean, be able to merge with the team, to work with them. So this is very, very important, okay? This is very, very important. So we are saying that information from different organization layers is essential to build effective business strategies and plan. The success of the business plan is linked to the reliability of what? Information. So the reliability of information. So even if we are setting our vision and mission is based on the SWOT analysis, the strength, weakness, opportunities, and strength, and the PESTEL analysis, and also the Porter's 5. If the survey with the information we are getting, this information is not from the right source, we will create a big problem for the organization. Okay, and that is going to create a serious problem that is going to lead to the detriment of the organization. It's important that so your decision, your decisiveness is based on the fact that you know that the information you have is accurate, is comprehensive, is current. The margin of error is not too much, so you can depend on it. Okay, you can depend on it. So these decisions will guide the business. So it is important that decision-making process be as accurate as possible. Effective managers rely on traditional decision-making process. Rational decision-making process, cognitive process that relies on analysis of information to make decisions and compares different solutions to discover the best scenario. And there are 7 basic steps that rational decision making should follow. And I want to show you that, okay? And that is it. The first thing is to define the decision. You define the decision. After you have done that, you determine the criteria. So what will be the criteria you want to use? All right. So after defining the decision, you set your standard. Then you evaluate the criteria. And then you rate the options out of those answers from some sort of priority. Okay. So having evaluated the criteria to use for that decision, you now rate the options. So maybe there's a decision to, an example, to buy a part, just as David said. So that decision has been taken. We want to take, so we have defined it. We have to buy a part. Why? Because one of our equipment is down, and we need to replace it immediately. So that decision or the problem has been identified. Determine the criteria. So how are we going to source for this, right? Are we doing local source or international source? If you are doing local source, how fast can we get this? What is the delivery period? If it is international source, what is the delivery period? Another criteria, what is the cost involved? Is it high? Is it low? What is the quality of the product? All right. What has been the track record for that company? Is it a known company? We want to do that. And when we have done that, that is the evaluation of the criteria. The next thing is down, we rate the option. We put some metrics in there. And then we calculate. Calculating just means that we are making a determination of the best option that you have taken. Okay. Now, when you are done with that, now you have the option. Then you evaluate the decision effectiveness. In other words, you now implement it, but you need to monitor. So now we are going to buy the product, but we need to monitor. When we put in the order and it's coming from foreign, we need to monitor and see if the mails have been what? Replied. And when have they shipped it? They've given us the tracking, number. So we are tracking. It has moved from here. They have picked it up from here. We are monitoring to just see. So when we see that there's a stampede somewhere, we then would have to take actions to, correct it. That is very, very important. So that is the process. And just then you need to look at it because it will come. So for managers, it is important to understand that while rational decision making is useful, it has still its own limitation. Okay, even the rational, this process, it has its own limitation. Why? The process assumes that it is possible to have all the information available and consider the effectiveness of the options. That's what is assumed, that you have the information. But whereas at certain point in time, not all information will be available. So also rational decision making is limited by the ability of the person making the decision, who should have the ability to critically analyze the information and make connections to what and then the meanings to the information. And one of the shortcomings of rational decision making is that it lacks creativity. You are not, you see, you are being bundled into some straitjackets, and you are not being allowed to be creative. You are following this method, and you need to follow it to the latter. And that is worrying, okay? And that's the downside of what rational decision making, as opposed to our traditional decision making. So if you look at this process, we are saying that you have idea generation, idea selection, and then what? Creative ideas. Here, what we are saying is that to improve the decision making process outcome, its shortcoming, it should include creativity. So now we are not just doing the rational decision making, but we are adding creativity to it. And creative decision require expertise, confidence, self-control, motivation, ability to think abstractly, and then perseverance. Intuitive decision allow decision makers to make decisions quickly based on experience and observation. And people see patterns from their experience and previous situation, and they can use that these patterns to guide them in their decision making. Okay, it helps people to also brainstorm. Okay, but in using the creative ideas, you also have to do it carefully, because in most cases, creativity will take you out of, the main box to doing some things that really affect the rules and the regulations. So all these things have to be measured so that you do not go way wild, but you stay within that confine. Whilst you are being creative, you are also being careful that there are rules and what regulations. So creativity should be carved around these rules and regulations. The last one is innovation and change. Okay, then we'll move to what we're doing today. So innovation and change. Now, when we say innovate simply means to apply a different method to do something that you are supposed to do. So for instance, if I'm supposed to go to the market and the only way to get to the market is either to use a vehicle, a motor, and then for some reason, I decided to use a bicycle, which ordinarily should not be used for such errands. I have used something that is new to go there, because that is not an agreed means of transport. It's a different method. Innovation, don't see it as too big a word, but it's ability for employees to find different methods. That will improve the way the work is performed. The work has to be done the way the target has to be met, but they're applying new methods that are foreign to what we have in there. And that innovation brings about some sort of introduction of technology into the system. It brings some new technology. It also increases productivity, because now we are using new methods. I give another example. So we all do research, and sometimes when I tell people that I can write a paper in 2 days, they say, but Dr. Boison, how do you do it? And people get scared. There was a friend who visited me. I was helping him with his thesis, and so I asked him to write a problem statement. It took like 2 weeks and came back. So whilst we said, I took the laptop and then I was just typing. I was just asking him questions. Okay, you got this, reference from where? He said he got it from here. But what he didn't know was that I had prepared a table. I've gotten all my literature and I prepared a table. And in the table, I've indicated the main artists that have done something in that area. And I've already identified my literature gap already in that table. So what he didn't know was that I was really, mining that information, and I was using it, paraphrasing and writing the problem statement. So in 1 hour, he realized I was done with the problem statement. And then he saw it and said, my God, how did you do that? And then blah, blah, blah. I just kept quiet, as if I came from a different planet. But what did I do? Because I've learned how to gather information and use it. That is a skill, so that when I'm writing, I know where to pick what. So anytime I read, I pick information from those articles. If I'm doing something in the procurement, I do that. So when I read, I say, okay, this one will be needed here. So I have a folder for methodology for, public procurement, implementation. I have methodology for something on innovation, maybe adoption of technology in procurement. So all the discipline, anytime I read, I go online, I save this information, okay? And then if there are quotations that I need, I sift these quotations and I have a file that I put them in there. So when I'm writing, and then you see me write. It is not, I'm not a magician. You understand? It's a new method that I've used. So it makes me productive. Right? So when we are talking about a subject, and then whilst I'm Zoom with them, and then I begin now to talk about the methodology, they don't know that I've opened that file and I'm talking about it. So this guy is very intelligent, and that is not it. It is the method that you use. Do you get it? The way you apply it. So that is very, very important. So innovation allows companies to remain competitive. Without innovation, companies cannot, survive. Today, if you are in business, yesterday I did, some of you could not join there's a hand up. Some of you, let me finish, so I'll allow you, please write it down. Some of you could not join the presentation I did, and I was talking to them about the technological lead, information technology strategies for leaders. And in the innovation is at the heart. In 2050, there is, a technology called artificial general intelligence that can, as we are even talking here on lecturing, I can look at your face and your expression will tell me what you are thinking. That is the extent to which, AI is going. And this is innovation. This is explosive. That you have devices and robots that will do strategic thinking. That deep thinking. And this AI, that after it has been able to leverage on big data for a very long time, and having big data, will be 100 times intelligent than the human brain. That's where they are getting into. And that is scary. That is very scary. So how do we prepare ourselves today to be able to catch up? So if you're in business now, what you need to do, as I told them here, is to take a course in data science, is to take a course in artificial intelligence, then know what is happening. Because very soon, and David, my senior, is here, and we are developing a conceptual paper. One has been done already, where the public procurement act will be on a blockchain. You will not see any of the evaluators to go and give them bribe. It's on a blockchain distributed ledger. You understand? So where do you see the person? A criteria is used when you are a professional in there. You go online and you enter your everything. The system through the logic will select, the groups. And anytime there's a tender, the system itself, works out with the logic and assign, who would have to do the evaluation. You do it independently and send it. The system will rate it and award the contract. So you will not be there. And that is going to curb what? Corruption. That is the extent to which, innovation is just, creeping into our system. We are getting into autonomous driving. Autonomous driving is driverless vehicles, leveraging on 6G, okay? 6th generation. And 6G, you are talking about, if, let's assume when we had 1G. 1G was just one lane that we could all use. So there was traffic. Then we had 2G, 2 lanes. Then we have 3G, all right, 3 lanes. Then we have 4G, 4 lanes. Then we have 5G, 5 lanes. Now we have 6G. And 6G generation devices are devices that can pick 10 gig data and drop it straight. 10 gig, it can pick it and drop. All right. And I'll share that video with you. I've asked them to share the video where we talked about some of these things. So we need to innovate. And innovation also comes with change. So that perception that we'll stay and doing what we are doing, that has to change. We need to change. The mindset has to change. Because if you don't change and change comes to meet you, that will be disastrous. Because it will meet you unaware. And that's the same thing that happened during the COVID. Today we are all on Zoom. I bet you when somewhere in 2010 I was using Skype, people thought I was crazy, right? Today, Zoom has become the order of the day, and we have no option than to use it. We don't have no option than to use it. Today, I can host like 10,000 people online in a class. I cannot get, space for these people in brick and mortar. That is not possible. So we are saying that there are steps managers must take to help support innovation within their company, such as they need to give managerial support to it. If there are people who are coming out with new ways of doing things, you need to support them. Creative teams must be formed, identify them and put them together, support them with budgets and other things, and then create strategies to apply and any helpful innovation. So they brought up something that is new. David, your guys in the office have brought up something new that is helping cut down all the process, not infringing on the act, but it's making it more effective. So why don't we use it? And then evaluate how effective the innovation, and then make changes as necessary. We are not changing anything. It is the method that we are using that is being changed. The target is there. The plan is, invoked. It's what it is, but we are just changing the way that thing is implemented. And it's important those in business should know that without innovation, we will die out. And even those who are innovating, they are still, today, Graphic, David is here. Graphic is now into courier business. Graphic is online. They are doing so many things because if they do not innovate, they will have a problem. The traditional way of doing things, of distributing the graphic, sometimes it gets to in the evening before some people even have the graphic to read. Today, they can go online, pay some small money, and they read. So how you wanted to get the graphic to them anyway, what was important was the content. So could you send the content electronically to the people? Is that possible? Yes. And I've said here that there's no such thing like a permanent excellent company. Those who are having companies, your own company, you cannot stay at the top forever. There is nothing like permanent competitive advantage, no. And we say that each day the world we operate in, we change. The world changes. And we change every day as an individual, and we change as what? An organization. And the way we are going to respond to change will determine whether we will survive, thrive, or fade away. So if your organization can stay in the markets, then it is how they respond to change. So you've heard. Now all courses across all disciplines, they are integrating data science. Why? Because data is now more expensive than gold and oil. That is how expensive data is. So everybody is going to data science. I'm taking a course in data science. Everybody is going there because that's the future. AI is going to lead everything we do, artificial intelligence. We used to have internet of people. Now we're having internet of things. There are your microwave is having an IP, internet protocol. Your iron is having an IP. To the extent that people can stay in the office and iron. They can stay in the office and their gas cooker has an IP, can cook. Their saucepans are having IP. So things are talking rather than what? People. That is where we are getting to. And we need to make sure that we support our staff once we see that we innovate. Any staff we innovate will not take your position, but will make you more effective. Innovation most likely will lead organizational change. It will bring the change. And organizational change is any change to the way that the business or teams operates. And there could be changes to the organizational structure. Sometimes that change that comes changes the organization structure. You see that COVID has brought the flex work, system, the flexible work. Up to now, some people are working from home. I was teaching from home. Today, I'm teaching from this place. When they said they wanted face-to-face, people were not even enthused about it. They wanted, the online because they stay in the comfort of their home, and you can multitask because you can do something else whilst even listening to this lecture. So the reason for change also varies. It can be due to company growth. It can be cutbacks. It can be technological changes, product changes. It could be even leadership or government regulations that is taking the company out of gear. And no matter the reasons for the change, it's important that managers successfully guide their employees and they take them through that transition. So in particular, it is particularly important to realize that organizational changes are not made simple for the sake of the change itself, but they are a necessity for survival. Without that, you will not survive. The world is changing every day. Every day is changing, and faster than we can think. Guess what? If you are not interested, you go into extinction, you die. And it's important that we adapt that. Okay. So managers need to be responsible to oversee the change process. And this course will not allow us to go that, but there are change management models that we can look at. I mean, very good models. Maybe remind me, Winnie, the course rep, I'll share some materials to you in that respect. So, I mean, this brings us to this section for the module 1. I mean, I will ask the person who wanted to ask the question to ask his question, then we can take it up from there. I mean, thank you so much for your time.